guess we're off.
I guess so.
All right, so here's the deal for those of you that may be like watching these videos for the very first time, don't know anything about what's going on. Welcome. Yeah. Yeah, I'm like driving through the parking lot at the movie theater. All right, so here's the story that's leading to this. We've been wanting to do these videos, and we've done a couple of them. This is the first time we've done one of these, all three of us coming back from Pensacola since we started this idea, right? We haven't done anything like this.
Yeah, most of the
you
time,
and I did a comic book version.
We did.
But we've done a few of them coming back from our local theater. But for the big shows, things like superhero movies and you know, the big blockbusters,
the pop culture stuff.
Yeah, we tend
Stuff we would talk about on the podcast.
Exactly.
Usually.
We tend to drive about an hour, between 45 minutes and an hour, depending on the day, to Pensacola to the IMAX theater so that we can watch it on the best possible screen. And so, obviously, we're coming out right now from Shazam: Fury of the Gods. But here's the story that's leading to this recording with it tonight. Earlier today, I tweeted out on our account, I asking the question if we should record one of these videos on the way home from seeing Shazam: Fury of the Gods. And Zachary Levi, apparently, I guess he was flying and he was connected to the internet and just tweeting like crazy with it. And I'd seen him interacting on some tweets all day, and I had interacted on some of the things that he tweeted out. And so I tagged him on that tweet, asking whether or not he should record it. And a little while later in the day, he retweeted it, and he said, "Do it." So
Here we are.
When Shazam tells you to record a reaction video to Shazam: Fury of the Gods,
You do it.
You record it.
you do it.
Yeah.
So, I guess, should we say, even like for anybody that may be checking us out that doesn't know who we are and what we do, should we say anything about like what our show is?
Yeah, I think a little
Might as well.
brief.
I'll let you do
So every episode I say it one way. I'm gonna see if these guys remember it. Sam.
Oh man, no, you can't put me on the spot like that.
I love it.
You know,
What's our show all about? How do we open it?
We believe that pop culture is the mythology of our generation, and that these stories, that there's a story written on our hearts, and these
That's
myths
right.
speak to that story. So that's why we talk about Shazam: Fury of the Gods.
Especially Shazam:
Star
Fury of the
Wars is where we got our start, but we've since moved on to all the things we like to talk about. So that's why we're sitting here talking about Shazam today.
Which
So, how'd I
honestly,
do?
when you think about it a little bit more, is a very fitting topic to talk about.
There's a lot of mythology.
There's a lot of mythology,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of heart in it too.
There were
Absolutely.
literal mythological characters
There were.
and creatures in it.
There were.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. First off, I if I'm being completely frank here,
Not Frank.
like the wizard with Freddy.
Jeff.
I was,
Jeff, yeah.
I was
Spoilers,
interested
by the
in
way.
seeing this.
Spoilers.
Oh yeah, everything on this is spoilers.
Oh
Spoilers.
yeah. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. I was interested in seeing this movie, but I have been up since 5, and it's been a really long day. And there was a small part of me that was kind of like, might not mind just going to sleep. But I had such a great time at that movie. It was funny. It moved well. I thought the action was cool. That whole end scene
was great.
In the stadium was awesome.
The final confrontation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one thing I've been like noticing as a trend in not just superhero movies but comics especially, is as the characters progress, like they get better, right? They ascend into how do I put this? I mean, godhood. That's obvious for a character like Shazam, but I've been researching like Iron Man and stuff, and he literally ends up becoming a god in one of his later stories, right? So it's this, you see these characters like become the ultimate version of themselves as the stories progress on, right? And you kind of saw that to an extent here with Shazam, I think. He was fighting that dragon. So it was really cool to see that like development of that character.
Yeah. It's cool. Now, for those of you that aren't normally following the shows, Nate over here is the comic book nerd of the family.
Yeah. Pretty much.
And obsessed with DC.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So I'm curious what your thoughts were on Shazam: Fury of the Gods.
Personally, always excited to see a DC movie no matter what it is, but I was kind of there with Sam. I was just like, this was another thing that we were gonna do, and I was excited to see it, but I wasn't overly excited because I mean, the trailers didn't sell me all that much, but I came into this, and with about 5 minutes in, I was having such a great time with this movie. And it's been a long time since I've said I had a very fun time at a superhero movie. Normally, last few superhero movies I've seen, they're great, and I've enjoyed them, but I'm just not really feeling like, I'm not laughing a lot, I'm not just enjoying myself. But in this one, definitely was just enjoying my time. Characters were great. Jack Dylan Grazer had a shine in this movie. He really,
Freddy?
Yes,
Yeah,
he did an amazing job. Had a little bit more of the spotlight in this movie than he did in the first one, and he ran away with it. And his moments of showing him actually being a hero, him being able to resist Calypso's power, which not even the wizard could do, which is
cool.
insane. And being able to resist the dragon's power as well was really awesome. But that didn't take away from Shazam and his moments and Billy and how he handled all of that. It was really Freddie and Billy's movie more than anything.
Well, I would say it was Billy, but as Shazam. So it was the Shazam version of Billy that's shown in this, and then Freddy,
yes,
that's shown in this movie.
Yes, it was a really great movie and a ton of fun.
So I'm a little surprised by you guys. I thought you were a lot more excited about this movie than you seem to have been. Was it you guys were just like, hey, we're going to a cool superhero movie, but Dad's super excited about this, so we're going to be excited for him? Is that kind of what's been going on?
No, I just think I was excited for it, but I was feeling, and I think a lot of people can agree, I'm starting to feel that superhero burnout.
Yeah.
There's been so much superhero content coming out recently, and after seeing, Creed 3 and all of these non-superhero movies, I've gotten to the point where I've started to really look forward to the non-superhero movies more because it's different. It's not another superhero movie that I'm going to see, because all Marvel movies are starting to feel pretty similar and repetitive, but this one just was very different from what I was expecting. But the trailers really made me think it was going to be just another copy-paste superhero movie, but it really wasn't.
Okay, so elaborate on that. What was it about this movie that isn't your copy-paste superhero movie like you were expecting it to some extent?
Yeah, I'm going to compare it to the other movie, which has seemed to get a lot of mixed reviews right now.
It's very similar. You're talking about Ant-Man
and Wasp, Quantumania.
The critics' ratings are very similar, and the fan ratings have been very similar.
Yes, they are. So. And so I'm going to compare those two. I enjoyed Ant-Man and Wasp, Quantumania. I think we all kind of felt the same about it. We all kind of got to a point where we were like, this was a fun movie. It was good. It's going to mean a lot for the future. But after like 5 minutes of that, we kind of just stopped talking about it. And then we recorded the podcast. I had my whole rant, and then it was done. And I had a fun time, but it wasn't anything super special. But when it comes to this movie, it did what Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumania couldn't. Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumania tried to have a high-stakes battle and plot, and so did Shazam. But I feel like Shazam accomplished that better while still focusing on having the heart of the characters and the heart of the family, and still maintaining that amazing Shazam humor that we got from the first movie. I don't feel like Quantumania maintained the heart and the great humor that we came to really
The humor
love.
felt forced in Ant-Man. It felt like there were these moments where like, oh, that's when they're trying to be funny. And sometimes it worked, and other times it didn't. While in this film, in Shazam! Fury of the Gods, the humor was just woven throughout the film in a very natural way that fit with the characters, fit with what we expected from the first movie.
And so I was able to connect with these characters more. I was more concerned at the end for Billy
for
all of that, and
We kind of knew that they had to bring it back.
Yes,
but they had me for a minute.
They did,
lie.
but they did the same thing in Quantumania. Yet that entire time, I wasn't worried. I didn't, and even if that case, I would kind of accept the fact, like, okay, if he's dead, he's dead. But in this one, I didn't want that to happen. I knew the stakes. I knew that they were high, and I knew that his sacrifice was going to mean something.
You knew they were high?
Yeah. What?
Sorry, it sounded like it was weird when you said that. You knew they were high.
Yeah, I knew they were high.
Well, that was the guy in the sneaker store at the mall earlier tonight.
It was for sure. But
you know, I'll be honest. When they had Billy dead, I genuinely thought once they cut away to the burial, I was like, "Wow, okay, they did it." And that's why I thought Freddy was such the standout character, or
that like they were going to continue the story.
I thought he was going to kind of take up the mantle because they were even calling Shazam. Captain Every Power Jr.
Every Power, yeah.
Right? So I thought, okay.
And that's the way that Shazam walks away from Freddy.
Yeah.
Right. So I kind of thought that's the route they were going to take it.
That would have been...
And I would have been okay with it.
Yeah, exactly.
It would have been sad because Zachary Levi's Shazam is phenomenal. He plays the part of a kid trying to be an adult amazingly. Which I don't know if maybe that's a compliment or not.
It is.
Well, Zachary Levi is a kid at heart.
100%.
Yeah. So, but I was totally okay with the fact that they might go with Freddy being the takeaway.
The
but
future
I'm glad
of the characters.
I'm glad he's back.
Can we talk about how...
Oh, do I get to get my opinion on
Yeah,
the
of course. Go ahead.
Because what led to that conversation that we just had was you guys saying that you were not really super excited, but you were, excited to go, but not like it wasn't that big of a deal. Which is the exact opposite for me.
You were insanely excited.
I mean, Shazam is without a doubt my favorite DC character from all the films, all that kind of stuff. That film has been my favorite. I loved the first Shazam because of the family piece and all of that in there, and it was just perfect. And all the people that on social media and stuff like that, they're asking what your hopes are, your expectations for this. If the family element worked in this movie, I was going to be excited. It worked even better than it did the first time. That scene on the rooftop between Billy and his mom.
Oh yeah.
It delivered. I realized what was happening when she started talking to him, that this was going to go back to the time when earlier in the movie when Billy didn't call her mom and all of that kind of stuff. But that scene was great. Yeah, and I don't remember, I think his name's Asher. Is that who plays? Asher Angel, that's right. He plays the Billy in this. He didn't get as much screen time in this.
Not nearly as much.
As the other kids got a lot of screen time.
Yeah, especially Freddy.
But Asher's moments on screen were standout moments. For him. And that's hard because obviously this is a Shazam movie. It's not a Billy Batson movie.
Right.
Obviously Zachary Levi is the star of this film, not Asher Angel. But they're the same character, and they have to work together on it, and it was beautiful. I loved this movie. I had so much fun. I mean, we recorded a video for Twitter before this, a short one, and I said this, but the kids in front of us watching this movie,
loving it.
They were laughing hysterically at all the right moments, and I loved going to a superhero movie that is able to fully resonate with kids, because so much of what's been going on in the DCEU, I mean, you can't take 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds to Suicide Squad. You can't take them to Birds of Prey.
No.
I mean, even Justice League, like the Snyder Cut, that's not made for kids, and that's fine. I have no problem with it. We love those movies.
Well, not maybe not.
No, but you know what I'm saying.
Yes,
we like the Justice League.
Oh my gosh, Snyder Cut's great.
But the point I'm saying is, it's a superhero movie.
Yeah.
Kids should be able to go to superhero movies, and they're becoming less and less able to do that. But this movie and the one before, of course, allow parents and kids to go to a movie and both have a great experience, because there's great story, great CGI, great monsters and scary moments, heavy moments that are going to resonate with your older crowd, but fun, lighthearted, humorous. I mean, good Lord, when when what's the Darla.
Yeah.
When she drops the Skittles in front of the unicorn and said taste the rainbow, they laughed. Those kids thought that they got the gag. They thought it was hilarious. And you're not gonna that worked in this movie. I don't know if that kind of thing would have worked in one of the MCU movies.
No, and we love
the MCU,
absolutely,
right? But it worked in this movie differently.
And I think that's the direction James Gunn is wanting to go with the DCU. He's wanting there to be those Snyder Cut, Suicide Squad, those movies for the older crowd, but he's also allowing there to be stuff for the younger crowd to be able to get into superhero movies. That's why he said if there's a story that is supposed to be PG-13 and kind of more geared towards that overall crowd, we're going to make like that. He's like, Superman Legacy is going to be PG-13 because that's a Superman movie.
Right.
And so that's the direction the DCU is going. And that doesn't feel like really where the MCU is going right now. We're kind of getting to the point where they're more okay with edgier stuff, more okay with kind of the TVMA and rated R with Deadpool and all that stuff coming out. But it's not a part where there's going to be family-friendly stuff and then there's going to be adult stuff. It feels like they're all kind of...
Well, I think that they are doing that, though, with like Miss Marvel and...
Yes,
I think they're diversifying a bit. I don't think they're going to completely move away.
Well, but when we get to the future, though, when they start bringing in Young Avengers, which they clearly are setting that up, I think you could see that being sort of the entry point for a new generation.
Yes.
It's very similar to Star Wars, with the sequel trilogy and stuff, bringing in a new generation. I mean, Marvel's getting old. I mean, the MCU, it's an old, not old, but, it started, 2008?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's old for a series that's still running, They need a way to hook the new generation, right? Because there have been there's been a new generation since it started, right? So you need those characters. With Shazam coming out at this point, right before they're resetting the timeline, right? The universe. I mean, it's a story about a bunch of kids as superheroes. What better way to grab a young audience than a story like this? I mean, like you said, Dad, the kids obviously absolutely loved the story, right? So this is a great way to bring in a new audience into what the new DC plan is.
Well, let's talk about that because this movie comes out at a really weird moment in DC films, right? It's the last film from kind of that previous Warner Brothers regime, right? Before James Gunn and Peter Safran came in. And they're revamping everything, and that's been a lot of turmoil, a lot of people getting frustrated. You have Shazam tied to sort of the same universe and the same storyline as not just Zack Snyder's vision, but even Black Adam.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very closely tied into that as well. And there's been talk. Nathan, explain what you understand about what James Gunn has said about Shazam and its place going forward, because I think it's still gray area.
It is a little bit of a gray area.
But explain what you understand.
Basically, he said, and if I remember correctly, in his announcement video that came out of at the end of January, the first chapter, that lineup, he did talk about Shazam, and he said that Zachary Levi will stay as Shazam, and those movies will stay because they've been disconnected enough from the DCEU that they aren't really going to have a problem bringing in those characters, which is great. And so I don't think there's anything really to be worried about a lot for Zachary Levi staying as Shazam, and maybe even the kids and the family staying in the same actors. I don't think there's a ton of concern there. And I mean, from where we are now, they obviously had some post-credit scenes that were tying into something.
Yeah, how do those tie? I mean, obviously the first one's directly connected with Amanda Waller and Peacemaker, but which is a James Gunn property, right, or production. And do we know where that's going to fit in now going forward?
Well, we know that in the new DCU. There is going to be that Waller TV show, live action TV show.
True.
Peacemaker Season 2 will be under the regime of the DCU. Creature Commandos is also going to be something under Amanda Waller's thumb as well.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but if I remember right, the Creature Commandos is the first release,
official DCU project,
and it's animated.
It is.
But the goal, the unique piece of it is the voice talent on Creature Commandos will also be used for live action versions of those characters in the DCU.
Okay.
So if they were brought in for even some cameos or for some appearances in that storyline, brought in a Shazam character, it would be Zachary Levi playing that character.
Most likely, yes. Okay. So really right now there's nothing to be worried about when it comes to his character and the fact that and Waller, I'm pretty sure he said, it's been a while since I've watched the video, but Waller will be taking place between season 1 and 2 of Peacemaker. So we very well could see possibly Shazam show up in that, or at least mention the Justice Society, maybe mention if that's still going to be a part of it. Right,
because Justice Society is tied into Black Adam too.
Very much tied into Black Adam. So, and also those characters could still be fine. That movie, take away the Henry Cavill Superman cameo, which had a Gal Gadot Wonder Woman in this one. You take away those cameos, they're disconnected from the DCEU, really. And so you could keep The Rock as Black Adam, even though I don't think he'd want to right now. But you could really keep those things still intact. You know, Atom Smasher. And I wish Dr. Fate would come back, but there's a lot of characters.
Sorry, we got a vehicle looks like it's facing our direction on the
wrong way.
It's just on the shoulder.
Oh, it's a tow truck. Okay, all right.
Tow truck with the car.
You see it in the lights behind us there, so that was weird. Okay,
that was strange.
All right,
but it's there is a lot of unknown right now, but I think that we're okay with Shazam. I think we're pretty good with the Justice Society, and I feel like those cameos aren't going to have a huge problem because some aspects, if you've read the comics when it comes to DC reboots, which are insanely convoluted and complicated.
All of the times they reset the
times. Every crisis has a reset. But there are aspects and characters and things that they keep from the past timelines and the past reboots that they put into the new universe. The universe could be completely different, but those characters and their backstories can stay. So you can remove that version of Henry Cavill's version of Superman. You can remove Gal Gadot's version of Wonder Woman. Keep those out, but you can keep some versions like the Atom Smasher and Zachary Levi's Shazam, and you can keep those characters in, keep their backstories, and there's not going to be an issue because those characters are the same. They're just in a different timeline now. Because what happened is you obviously have started to watch the DC animated movie universe.
Yeah.
And in Flashpoint Paradox, when he goes back in time, saves his mother, and comes back, we can kind of assume that not everything's quite the same. That, at least in the comics, not everything's the same. And there are things that have changed in that version. And so...
I mean, it's like what happens in the Flash trailer.
Yes,
He's
exactly.
Like, I created a world with no metahumans.
Right, so there are things that are different, but then again, some things are the same. There are some characters that are still there. Barry Allen is still there, same character, just didn't get shocked and have the experiment happen. And so I don't think there's much concern with the future of Shazam. There's much concern with the future of the Justice Society or Peacemaker or Amanda Waller or anything like that. And so, yes, there's a lot of unknown right now, but I think people are making it to be a little bit more complicated than it actually is.
Well, I'm going to be just transparent because might as well, right? I think that the problem is the people that are making the big deal out of, no, this can't connect with the future of the DC universe because of it's tied to the old stuff and it was produced and everything before that. They're the kind of people that are trying to generate buzz. They're trying to generate clicks for their websites and link, downloads for their videos and all that kind of stuff. So, it is what it is.
It is, but I mean, I gotta talk about the Wonder Woman cameo.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. That's the next thing I was gonna talk about.
The thing I love most about this cameo was it wasn't a normal superhero cameo. Usually when you have, like, you take Black Adam, for example. He shows up at the end. Everybody's super excited. It's a great moment. It's awesome. The movie ends. In this one, it had genuine importance to the story.
Yeah,
it did.
It meant a lot. If that character wasn't there, Billy wouldn't be alive at this point. And so it's so refreshing to see a superhero cameo that isn't just there to generate buzz, but is actually there to have some importance to the story, which is great to see now, because everybody talks about how in the MCU there are so many movies that happen and so many world-ending events that happen, and no other superhero in the entire universe recognizes it.
Yeah.
And it just goes unnoticed. In this one, she wasn't there to help, but at the end, she noticed what happened, you know, said that Billy did a good job and the sacrifice was well made and he did a great job with fighting.
Didn't he send her a letter?
He did, too. And so all of that really mattered in the end. And it wasn't just they were showing up to show up, which is very refreshing to see in a superhero movie now.
Also, I love Steve.
Oh yeah, Steve is great. The pen.
Oh, it was like, who's Steve? And then you
Steve, the pen.
The pen is cool. That's a character they got to keep in the future.
For sure.
Is he from the comics? Do you remember him?
Not from what I remember, no, but he probably is. The Shazam.
You're not as much
the
in the Shazam side of the
is
comics.
not really one I read all that much. I know a few aspects of the characters, but it's hard to find a ongoing series for Shazam. But
Well, when I was reading today, I was learning, you know, because you've mentioned previously in some of these conversations when we've been in the cars, but also like on the podcast, that Mary Marvel has often been brought in as a villain.
Sometimes.
And I saw an article today that was kind of tying into that, explaining a little bit about her character. So I read it, and you're right. The entire Shazam story has changed so many times.
So many.
That it's hard to have a consistent.
It very much is. But I don't think they're going that direction, at least not right now.
I don't think so
Mary
either.
being a bad guy. She's definitely... I feel like each other family member, other than Billy himself, got one specific attribute from the Shazam, from the gods.
I felt that in the first movie to some extent.
Exactly.
But in this one, it feels like they've got all this.
They have all the powers, but some of them use certain ones more often. Because that's what they attribute to most. And Mary's for sure is wisdom.
Sorry, it's raining if you're hearing the white version. So.
But Mary's is for sure the wisdom of Solomon. Yeah, and I think that's what they were going for.
Although I kind of got the feeling at one point that maybe Darla had the wisdom of Solomon.
Yeah,
when she was showing
Skittles.
the wisdom of a child. No, just the way that she was processing things in that whole sequence with before the Skittles and everything. With it. What about the fake out though with Wonder Woman earlier in the movie?
Oh, the dream.
Funny.
Yeah, I mean, they showed that scene apparently at CinemaCon last year.
Did they? Okay.
They did. So I heard like stuff about it, you know, the whole dream and all that stuff, or San Diego Comic-Con, one of those things. But I was a lot stranger than I was expecting.
It was weird.
The wizard that that was weird. But they were trying to fake us out,
like the Henry or like
yes,
the
the Superman cameo in the first one, which was very funny to touch on that. I feel like they had a lot of fourth wall breaking humor in this movie.
the Avengers line,
Avengers Society.
It's been 2 years.
It's right.
In the other
Explain what you mean by that though. I'm not sure I picked up on that joke.
The second post-credit scene with I forget the caterpillar's name. It's something, the ultra smart talking caterpillar, which had a post-credit scene in the first movie with Savannah.
But that caterpillar is in the Rock of Eternity area with the wizard
at the beginning
in
of
the first
and he gets out and he's talking to Savannah saying we're gonna enact revenge and we're gonna take over the world. And then this movie came out and it felt like they completely forgot about that plot line, and then they bring it up in the second post-credit scene, mentioning that it's been 2 years in universe and nothing has happened. And he's just been busy trying to get all that stuff together. But
and then he leaves again.
Yeah, and then he leaves again.
Right.
It's hilarious. It was a great post-credit scene to kind of just leave that open for whenever they want to bring it back up. But that was a lot of fun. That post-credit scene was good.
Yeah.
Sam, what do you think are some of, like, what was your favorite moments?
I mean, I kind of liked how the scenes that were cheesy, they knew were cheesy, and they made fun of it. Like the whole scene when, I forget her name, Anne,
Sure.
and like got Billy and the wizard out of the pit or whatever, and they were all, being all sappy and sweet and all that, and the wizard's back there like, all right, that's great.
Feelings.
Like, yeah, feelings.
Oh yeah, that was great.
That was, that was funny. I liked how it didn't take itself too seriously. It knew what was silly in the movie, and it acknowledged the silliness.
Like, and then when they kissed later on, and the dad's like,
Yeah,
I kind of feel like this is a little
because that's what we were all
inappropriate.
thinking,
Right. And that was even kind of a little bit of a joke in the Snyder Cut, where when Flash and Cyborg are digging out Clark's body, and Flash is like, so Wonder Woman, huh? And Victor's like, she's 4,000 years old, dude. So it's funny to have that little callback to a movie that doesn't technically exist, or does. We'll figure that out probably in the Flash, but yeah, it was a fun movie.
I like the letter they sent to the daughters. That was funny.
Oh, when they read
It's like
when you voice text.
Yes.
Well, but the best part about that is not just the letter and all the funny things that are written down in it. It's Helen Mirren
having to read
it. That makes it hilarious because she's reading it completely straight.
Yes.
And you keep wondering when she's going to be like, what in the world am I reading? Because we're all thinking, oh wait, that's what she's thinking, going to be wondering. And she just continues to read it straight the whole time.
It was great.
Yeah. What is it with movies, specifically superhero movies, like casting phenomenal actors for villains and then killing them off and never having them show up again?
Though, she wasn't a bad guy.
Well,
and neither was Anthea. It was Calypso that was the real villain.
Calypso was the definite villain.
She was the real villain.
Well, she killed people.
No, I'm not saying that she did. I know her motives were bad at the beginning, but then she kind of started to understand that this isn't going the way that was intended, and so she flipped sides pretty quick.
Yeah.
We got some
so we were eating lunch at dinner at the mall before the movie. And we were sitting there, and I don't know how we got on the subject, but we were talking about like who the different, where the different powers came from.
God, that was it. We were talking about it like Shazam, right? Nathan and I knew what we were talking about.
I didn't. So y'all were like, it's the wisdom of Solomon, the strength of Hercules, the blah blah blah. Going through the list, and I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, oh wait, the first letters of each of those characters or those names spells Shazam.
Right.
And you're like, you didn't know that? I'm like, no, I just realized that. I find it funny that they mentioned that in this movie too.
That none of them realized it.
Right.
Shazam didn't realize
that that's where Shazam came from. He's like, yeah, I thought that.
Which is probably a little bit of a tease on the audience from the first movie not picking up on that.
Right.
Well, you. Myself.
Yeah.
I'm lucky I caught it before this movie. It was a few hours before.
Right.
But I thought that was a funny moment. And the whole like, what is my name? He's like, it's Shazam. He's like, duh.
Yeah.
That was because they can't call him Captain Marvel. So, that's what he is in the comics, right, Nate? Or is he Shazam?
No, he's Shazam in the comics now because they lost the lawsuit with Marvel for Captain Marvel and all that stuff. It's a long story.
Okay.
But
speaking of cameos, though, when I was a kid, there was a Shazam TV show.
There was.
Yeah.
And that guy,
I saw him. Yep.
He showed up. Well, what tips it off at first is what he's wearing.
Yeah.
And so he's wearing something very similar to stuff he wore in the TV show.
Like Billy Batson wore.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh my gosh, he's from Shazam. Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that too. That was cool. They did that with Wonder Woman. in
They did as well.
84.
84, yeah.
And there was a weird post-credit scene in that one too that hasn't been resolved. That probably won't be, but
Which one was that?
that her original actress was in the world and is gonna do something at that point.
She was a different goddess, right?
Yeah, she was. So we'll see how that goes. But
what were some of your favorite moments, Nate?
you know, an aspect I really liked about this movie was sometimes superhero sequels struggle with trying to recapture what the first movie did by first act and a half is setting up the story, and then the last parts are just big battles and all that stuff. This movie understood that you've probably watched the first movie if you're going to see this one. You saw his origin. You know all the characters already. There's no problems there. We're going to introduce the bad guys, but we're also not going to spend time on worrying about explaining who these characters are and where they are in their life.
There was an element of...
There was an element of that.
A setup when he's with the therapist.
Yes, but that was like 2 minutes, and instead of it being the first hour and 15. And so they set that up, and they just went, and they had the villains show up, and then they had those battles happen, and it was just one big, genuinely felt like a comic arc. Because if you're reading an arc of an ongoing comic series, you're gonna have read the first arc that happened before that. You're not gonna know what's gonna happen in this new one if you don't. So they don't need to explain anything, and if they do, it's in a couple text boxes, and then they just move on and introduce the bad guys.
Yeah, it's like, this was discussed in this issue. Go read it, you know?
Exactly. And so that was something I really liked in this movie. But I will have to say one of my favorite moments was that rooftop conversation before his big battle. Kind of what set him to do that final sacrifice, which was really an awesome moment. And just the family aspect was something I was worried was going to take a bit of a back burner in this movie, just judging from the trailers. But obviously they knew what they were doing by not showing a lot of the trailers, and so it wasn't that big of a deal, and they definitely had that front and center again, which was what's needed for a Shazam movie.
I really liked they named it as the imposter syndrome that Billy's struggling with throughout this entire... Like, he's got the abilities now, and there's a level of confidence that comes from that, almost an overconfidence and arrogance in some ways, but that overconfidence is actually masking a lot of insecurity that he's feeling, like he doesn't feel worthy. That's like the primary theme for Shazam, or for Billy, throughout the entire film is, I'm not worthy to be this, which really is the way that the first movie sets it up, and even most of this second movie is he made a mistake. The wizard made a mistake, right? He would, they even tease about it early on. The daughters of Atlas are talking about, of course, the wizard would only have chosen the absolute most worthy, almost Thor level worthiness, right? Champions to do this, and then we go and it's a bunch of kids, and so that's a theme that's throughout this. But then the wizard's on his own journey throughout this entire film of coming to realize that the heart, we watched the original Shazam this last weekend, and the two things that the wizard says are required, right, is a pure heart, right, and strength of, it was something about purity and strength of soul, strength of heart, or something like that.
Yeah, something.
Right, and when I watched the original Shazam through that lens, Billy Batson is worthy.
Yes.
Right? He's a screw up. He's breaking, he's running away from foster homes. He's tricking the cops to steal data from their police computers. Yeah. He's cutting school. He's to some extent treating Freddy poorly. He's not accepting the love of his family. All of those things make you feel like Billy Batson's not worthy to be Shazam. But when you watch it, is he got a pure heart, and he's got a strength of spirit. I think that's the two things.
Yeah.
Right? He's got both of those.
Yeah.
And the wizard in this movie is on a journey of discovery to come to the point where he realizes that that's the case. And he does it in understanding that Billy was so willing because he loves his foster siblings, his siblings, and he trusts his siblings to give them powers.
Yeah.
They deserve it because all of us can be worthy. That's what the wizard says in it. That was
You believe that everyone can be worthy.
Yes.
Is what he said.
Yeah, I love that. That's a really, really cool message that would be lost if this was just about superheroes and monsters and villains and those types of things. That's what makes that stuff is what makes Shazam different, in my opinion, than so many of the other superhero movies, and why it's become my favorite character, probably in both sides of, in the MCU or DCU. He's become my favorite character. So
yeah, that's a good point.
I think something that the MCU has started to struggle with is the idea of we have so many fans now that we have to live up to, and so they've started to focus less on stories and emotional characters and all that stuff, and started to move, we need big blockbusters, we need things that will bring people to the theaters and will make them have a lot of fun and great action and great CGI. And this was a great example of an amazing sequel that still took those characters and allowed them to have emotional character arcs. And a bad example of that is Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
which is okay. So give some context to why you're bringing this up.
I'm bringing this up because Doctor Strange is my guy. He's my Shazam when it comes to the Marvel. I love that first movie so much, and I was so excited for Multiverse of Madness. Actually, I was excited for Doctor Strange 2 until I heard Sam Raimi was directing it.
Just because you haven't you so appreciated the way that
Scott Derrickson did the first movie, and I heard what he was going to be doing for the second one, which was going to be a character journey, an emotional backstory for Doctor Strange that would give us more of his character. I've heard about it, and it would have been an amazing movie. Then they put Sam Raimi in charge, and it just kind of devolved into an action horror superhero movie that had really no bearing on Doctor Strange. Maybe had bearing on Wanda.
I was going to say, but Wanda has more of a character arc in this than
the Doctor Strange is just there. I mean, America Chavez has more of a character arc than Doctor Strange even does.
I wouldn't go that far. I think that's a little bit.
They're the same. They're the same level, is what it feels like to me. But that was an example of a sequel that didn't know what it was going to be, and also changing directors doesn't help.
Oh no!
Shazam had the benefit of same director and not this overwhelming weight of the MCU. I mean, DC has been the underdog for years, and it's not like they have to live up to a certain standard. Because honestly, when it comes to some DC movies, or at least the overall opinion on DC movies, the bar is pretty low. And so anything, if you can have,
what is this
coming from the
of?
DC fan.
What did we watch recently? Is it in a trailer? Oh, it's the trailer for the for the Nike movie. What's the name of it?
Air.
Air. Right. It's when he's like, what's our pitch for our basketball division?
The one thing they can't compete with, our basketball division sucks.
Right. It's almost like you just said that about the DCU.
and I love DC, and I love their movies. Most of them I really do enjoy. But honestly, everybody looks to the MCU for high quality superhero movies, and DC's been kind of thrown to the curb when it comes to that. So when you have this ability, you don't have this pressure on you, so you can make what you want to make and not what you think people want.
Yeah.
And at that point, you start to get into your head like, oh, well, we got to introduce a bunch of characters, and we got to make it have a huge impact on the future of the MCU, or people are going to get angry and all that stuff, when you really should just make a fun superhero movie and make what you want to make. Because at that point, if it's fun and there is a lot of passion behind it from the director, the fans are going to feel that, and they're going to enjoy it. that's what I loved about Zack Snyder's DC movies. You could tell he had such love for Superman and Man of Steel, and he had a story he really wanted to tell, and he didn't let anybody tell him no.
Yeah.
Even when he let him told him no, he left the project, and then we saw the Snyder Cut, and we understood that that was infinitely better than what Warner Brothers thought the fans wanted, which then turned into 2017 Justice League, which didn't turn out great. I think we all can agree on that. And we see the Snyder Cut, and we understand that when you let somebody make the story that they want to make fully, and let the directors do what they do best and what they're there for, it can be really good. And that's what we saw with this movie, and that's what we saw with the first Shazam. They're passion projects is what they feel like. They aren't, he was hired to do them. There's a lot of heart behind them and a lot of heart in them that really shows the fan base why we should love this movie. And that's what I got from it. I really enjoyed it because it was just a fun time at a superhero movie, which I love the Batman, but that's not a movie you go to watch to have fun at. That's not a fun movie, but it's a great comic book movie.
So going forward, you know, with this reboot, resetting of the DC universe and all of that, do you think that, and both of you can talk about this, not just Nate, you know, is there a place for Shazam in the future of DC?
I think since we have, I'll let you talk about this, but James Gunn said that there is less than half of the first chapter announced right now. There's a lot of place for him in this, especially with what the first chapter is going to be about. Gods and monsters.
They almost talked about
almost
it.
said
Yeah.
it. Almost said it.
They said gods and humans, right?
Gods and humans
can coexist or learn to live together or whatever.
And so there's plenty of room for him and the Shazamly in it, and so yeah, I think that he'll fit in.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I can add to that. With so much room for stories to be told, I think it'll fit great. I mean, obviously they're already giving him an in, so to speak, for this new era with the Waller thing. You know, he's already going to be in with Waller, and we know Waller's heavily influencing this.
Yes.
This next.
She's definitely the Nick Fury.
Yeah, she's the Nick Fury, and she's and this is the I'm here to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative moment.
Yeah, that was almost that moment in
for this saga. It? So I think he's going to be pivotal for this next. I don't know what is it called, the reboot. I guess.
A reset or
reset.
Whatever, yeah.
You know, he's going to kind of act like the Iron Man, the Captain America. You know, maybe not in terms of popularity, but as a sort of cornerstone. You know, he was there from the start. And
build the stories around.
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah.
You know, obviously they kept Iron Man still as a very integral part of the MCU up until Endgame. That may not be the case here with Shazam as being like the end all be all. You know, like saving the universe by the end of it. But I think he will be a staple character. I think he will be something that you can look to for consistency within the next DCU. And I think that he's a great character for that because he's fun. He's, like we've said before, he's not already too connected to the old DCU, so it's not going to hurt anything by having him in this new thing. And, you know, there's kind of room for the character to age with Billy Batson, that actor. You know, you can have him around for many years to come.
Well, but then how do you do that for many years to come? Because because you're when you think of Shazam, you think of Zachary Levi, and Asher Angel is going to grow up in the next few years. I mean, I don't know how old he is now, but it's not going to be too much longer before you're going to have the same thing with him happening that needed to happen with Mary.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. Which, I don't know. We'll have to see.
It's cool. So what would you say to somebody that's on the fence about seeing this movie?
Oh, just go see it. I mean, even if you like slightly enjoyed the first one, if you're just wanting a fun time at the movie theater again, to go see a fun superhero movie, not one that has huge ramifications for a universe or anything like that, just has a fun family aspect, great fights, a lot of humor that really does hit very well, then yeah, go enjoy it.
It felt like Shang-Chi in a way.
In some ways, yeah.
You know, obviously Shang-Chi wasn't a sequel, but it was exactly what you wanted and a little more from that movie. This movie it had the fun you wanted. It had cool superhero moments in it. Yeah, I think Nate, you hit it on the head. I think that's exactly what I would say. If you liked a little bit the first movie, then you'll love this movie because it's the first one, but better in a way. You know, not that the first one wasn't good.
No, the first one's great.
Well, I mean, for me, again, Shazam, the first one was something I loved and super excited to come into this one. And it checked all the boxes and more for me. I came out of it excited. I loved the characters and the development. The family piece of it worked. So, I think that if we can just set aside sort of this super overblown expectations about film and superhero movies and just go to the theater to enjoy a superhero movie, then people will have a lot more fun with this.